with Blood Vial, so
Mm.
the what is the scope of this game? 'Cause you said you wanted to
This,
cut it down. Like,
mm.
what do you want it to be when you've sort of got it already?
So what I want it to be is a relatively difficult roguelike first-person shooter, or rather a first-person shooter with very light roguelike elements. So all
Mm,
the levels are extremely simple, procedurally generated. It's basically just select a room and then place another room and place another room. It's the presets.
mm,
And so there'll be three different environments, but it's just one run through. Like the aim of the game should really be the first couple times you play it, you're just trying to beat the game.
mm,
And there'll be probably like 10 to 12 levels or something like that with three different environments. So at the start, you're just trying to learn the mechanics and beat the game. And then on top of that, I'm hoping to layer like a high score system, so that you can replay it a couple of times and have some leaderboards, and perhaps some very light meta progression. So unlocking new weapons that you select at the start of the of each run,
mm, mm,
and the upgrades that show up between levels. So between levels, you choose an upgrade,
mm,
and that's just something passive. So it might be like faster reload speed or those kinds of things.
mm,
And so I'm hoping to get replayability out of firstly just learning the game, and secondly trying to optimize your score. And that's really basically the exact formula that Post Void followed. So
mm.
I'm following in their footsteps pretty closely for like the core of the game. And really the main difference is that blood system that's layered on top.
Mhm. Okay. So both this game and also Spring Dash, you seem to have this interest in doing like movement focused games. And
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
very interesting. Just like what is it that sort of draws you to that as like a overarching mechanic?
It's a good question. And I think I probably have a pretty unsatisfying answer for you, which is that it's almost entirely just coincidental. So Spring Dash happened. Spring Dash was the result of a game jam.
Mm,
It was the first game jam that I ever did using the Godot game engine. And the prompt was, I think it was growth or something like that. And in my
mm,
mind, I went, oh, like plants that grow, and then the growth of the plants propel you. And so that was the game jam project that I built. And then I finished that game. I decided to finish that game. And then when I moved on from Spring Dash, I was like, well, I have some experience in building movement systems,
mm,
so I may as well do it again. And that's really the only reason.
mm,
I think, to be honest, future projects probably won't use that same focus on movement. I think I'll probably switch things up a little bit. The problem with these fast games is that because you move so fast, you need to make so much more content, because you're just zipping through it all. So it's a bit of a it's a bit of a downside, but it's fun to make for
mm.
sure.
Do you personally play a lot of movement style games, or does this just happen to be because of that prompt and because of that game jam?
Yeah, I mean, I did play quite a bit of like Titanfall 2,
Sure.
and those kinds of games, and I always liked first-person shooters when I was growing up.
Mhm.
I don't know if I really have a huge focus on movement games. I've played like a bit of Ultra Kill, I've played Neon White, and I enjoy games like that, but
Mm,
I honestly don't play that many games, to be honest. Not as much as I used to.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah. So I don't really know exactly why. I think it was just a product of building that game jam. People seem to like the movement system, and then it's just been like a positive feedback loop
Mhm.
since then.
I think a good movement system always just feels fun.
Mm,
Like that's one of those things which always I play a lot of platformers, and the
mm,
first thing that always sticks out to me is how does it feel to move? And I think of a game
yeah.
like Ori. Ori has a phenomenal
Mm,
movement system with the
absolutely.
vault. What the you can like
I
angle
forget what
yourself,
it's
whatever it's called.
called. Yeah,
Yeah, you know
yeah,
the kind I'm
yeah.
talking about, where you can just
I
angle
do.
where you want to go and just bounce in that direction. That's a
Yeah.
really cool system. And if you build a
Hmm.
game just around that mechanic and nothing else, you could make
Yeah.
a really good simple game with that. And
100%. Yeah.
like I'm playing through Silk Song, and
Mhm.
platforming, unless you're doing like the really end game stuff, is not really the main focus of Hollow Knight and of Silk Song, but the movement is really tight, and
Mm.
every single area you go to is designed specifically around how how that feels to play. Where
Yeah.
oh, you can do a wall bounce on a singular wall. And sometimes you might need to do that to sort of wait for something to happen. And of course, think of games like Celeste. Celeste is the
Mm.
perfect example of a game where the movement is. I don't think there's anything I would change about the movement in Celeste. It is
Yeah.
perfect. And every level is specifically crafted around how it feels. And
Yeah.
regardless of anything else in a game like that, moving just feels fun.
Yeah, I think it's important when you're building a game to think about the action that the player is taking most often,
Mm.
and really nail that down because that's the majority of what people are going to be doing in these types of games is just moving around. So you may as well spend time up front, especially if that's the whole focus of the game,
Mhm.
really, really polishing it up. For Blood Vial, I think probably the first 3 to 4 months of development was firstly working out how the heck to do that blood system.
Mhm.
And secondly, it was just basically an empty room and getting that movement to feel the way that I wanted it to feel. And I think for the most part, I've gotten to the point where I'm happy with the movement, and my playtesters seem to enjoy it quite a bit.
Mhm.
And I think I credit that entirely to just spending a good amount of time right at the start before you get into content production, before you get into all the other craft, all the other stuff.
Mhm.
Just make sure it feels really, really good.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Now, since the game's in first person, you can hide some things. So, just a bit of game developer stuff. How do you actually handle the blood diving system? Because I can think of some dumb ways you can do it, but I don't know how you've decided to approach it.
Are you talking about the system of painting the blood and erasing the blood, or
Like when
just
you
the
can like
movement particular?
dive into the blood
Yeah,
and move around.
right. Yeah, it is pretty dumb. So the tricky part with the blood system is really like knowing when you can actually dive in. That's some compute shader nonsense. But in terms of the actual movement, it is literally just shrinking the player collider and disabling a collision layer, so you're just really close to the
Yeah,
ground.
yeah,
And that's
that's what I was
that's it.
thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how else you would do it, to be honest. That seems like the most simple way to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.